In this video, I want to talk about fall hair color trends for 2025. One of the things that's important for me as a hair colorist is inspiration. And a lot of you wonder, where do I get my inspiration? A lot of it's pretty obvious. Television, movies. When I'm just out in the world, I just like to look around and see what's going on. One thing I've found, however, doing this for a long time, is some of my greatest inspiration has been by asking my younger staff, the younger generation, where do you get your inspiration? So I am going to turn and I'm going to ask Katie for fall hair colors this year. Where do you get your inspiration?
So I typically get my inspiration from social media. I like to take bits and pieces of things that I've seen from other people and kind of apply that to my work. I really love when people come in and kind of just are like freestyle or do whatever you think would look best. That's my favorite thing to hear. I love, the fact that when the seasons change, that means that people want their appearance to change a little bit too. So whether that be like a bold new color going from light to dark or dark to light, or playing with the colors a little bit, the undertones. What's been big lately is little like pops of color here and there, so I love doing a little like peekaboo. I actually do peekaboo on my grandma a lot, and the amount of compliments I've gotten from people when we're out and about, or just like her on her own when she comes back, it means so much to me to know that like people stop her and are like, I love your hair. It's really
I'm going to
cool.
stop Katie because I've witnessed this, you guys. It's true. Explain to everyone what your grandmother's hair looked like and what's the peekaboo.
So my grandmother's hair is naturally like silver, and what I like to do is I kind of just like section off the top part of her hair, and I like to do little like stripes of different colors, so like pinks, purples, blues. And she's got curly hair, so when her hair curls up, she's got little ribbons of color that just kind of like peek through. And it's not something where you have to be really crazy with it, but it still adds a little flair to her hair, which is really fun.
I love that. I got inspired by watching you. And another thing that you brought to my attention was a halo color. All right. And I'm not sure where you learned this, but you introduced it to me, and explain it to our audience. What's a halo color?
So a halo is basically where, again, you would section off like the top layer of hair and kind of leave that more natural, and then you do your pop of color right around the hairline. So when you put your hair up or half up, half down, you've got a little pop of color, but it's not something that's overwhelming for everybody to see. It's kind of just like a fun little peak of color.
I love that. I love that. Well, I took that piece of inspiration and I took it all the way to the next level with one of my clients. Same thing what Katie said, really dark up here, and I think we color it to make sure it stays real dark, but all around her hairline we did a tremendous pop of very, very blonde, almost white, and the way she wears her hair kind of feathered, it really accentuates that blonde. She came in a couple days ago to buy some shampoo, and she made a point to walk up to the color room and tell me, Douglas, I cannot walk through the grocery store without someone yelling at me, I love your hair. She says everywhere she goes, people stop her and compliment her on her hair. Now that's a pretty extreme of what we do in the fall. Well, another thing I wanted to ask you, Katie, is how can we take this level of inspiration and kind of tone it down for the client that's not quite as bold as your grandmother or my client? How can we take that feeling and apply it to someone that doesn't want to be yelled at in the parking lot?
I think the best way to go about kind of having a fun flair without it being extreme is kind of like layering different colors on top. My favorite thing to do is kind of like do little pops of color that are a little bit, maybe a level or two lighter than the rest, so it kind of like gives like nice little ribbons of color, but it's not so dramatic. It's more about the tone and messing with the tones.
I love that. I love that. So what I hear when she explains that, I picture leaves changing in the fall. A leaf's going to start out one color, and as the time goes on, it changes and changes and changes, and all those colors complement each other. Take that idea and incorporate it in your hair color, and it gives us lots and lots of options.
So what I would love to know is, we're going into a different season. What do fall highlights look like to you as opposed to summer highlights? What if somebody doesn't want to go darker, they want to maintain the lightness, but they don't want, they don't want it to be summer hair, they want it to be fall hair?
Oh, what a great question. I love that. So what I heard was, how do we create change without making a change? Basically, I want to stay blonde, but I don't want to be the same blonde. Great question. I have a couple of different answers. One thing I like to do is layer different levels of blonde. So your very, very light summery blonde might sit on top, but right under it we might have more of a honeyed color blonde or a wheat colored blonde. Different levels and tones of blonde. Another way to have some fun with fall highlights is to create more contrast within the actual blonde. So still the same percentage of highlights, but the highlights are going to have some backdrop to them. So that light piece has some dark right behind it that really makes that light piece pop. That's fun to play with. And another thing is to, I know this sounds scary to some of my blonde people, but is to reduce the percentage of blonde over the fall. Instead of being 60 or 70% highlighted, maybe we bring you down to 30 or 40 and let your natural color really be the color that it, kind of sets the tone. Because you got to remember, in the fall, you're probably not as tan. So your skin's a little different, so your hair needs to be a little different. You're probably also not wearing the same color clothes that you wore in the summer. Again, change creates more change. So within the blonde, I think there's a lot of ways to go. What are some ways you change your blondes?
I personally love a good shadow root. I think that it adds a lot. Sometimes having a darker base with the lighter highlights is enough, but I also love the idea of playing with different tones, maybe adding a little bit of copper in there, or like a little bit more of like a sand blonde, just to kind of get some of that like dimension back in there without it feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm super dark. I just think that it's really pretty. I love like that we're kind of matching the vibes of like fall, like following just like the warmth of everything.
Okay, so now you see why it's so important to have a younger person's perspective on this. I in a million years wouldn't have thought, give them dark roots and make it shadowy and smudgy. The kids love it. And if you look at social media, it's everywhere. So it's real important that you have young influence when it's helping you make these decisions. Let me ask you this. When you go to buy clothes, and you go to your favorite store, who do you want helping pick out your clothes? Do you want the person that's your age? Or do you want a young person that's hip and in today's style helping you pick out your clothes? I think the same is true for your hair.
So we've covered blondes, fall blondes. What about brunettes? What are some ideas for like fun things we can do to like, bring those fall brunettes to life as well?
Oh, great question. When it comes to brunettes, or really it's darker hair, we don't have quite as many options to make the really big impact without it being noticeable. So one of the things I love to do with a client who's a little more reserved is I like to layer different levels of brown. Or whatever hair color it is, the red browns, the warm browns, but instead of being one solid color all the way, we still have our base color, but within the interior, we would block, it's what we call like a block color. We would layer different levels and colors of browns, red browns, golden browns. Think of fall leaves changing. Now we can do that really extreme with a lot of different between each color, or we can compact that and make each color almost like the other one, just so when your hair moves, there's little bits of different colors kind of moving throughout. That's something I love to do on my brunettes. Again, that's kind of subtle. What are some things you're doing on your brunettes?
So kind of playing into like messing with different tones of browns. I love kind of warming up the browns a little bit. So what I really think is nice is also kind of keeping the darkness up top, but then having a little like flare of color on the ends. Something like more on the copper region, or like a chestnut brown. Something that like just kind of gives like those shadows a little bit more movement as well. Because with color, you can get some movement out of that. And I think it's fun to just have like a little bit, it's not totally changing the look of the brown, but kind of like adding hues different hues.
So you're saying use the color that's faded on the ends, that the client all summer, these ends have been fading. Now it's fall time, so you're suggesting a darker, richer color into more of a fall color down on the ends. Now, would there be a line in that?
No, it would be a very smooth transition. I would kind of like almost flick the color down so that there's not that harsh line there. It's all very like smooth and like just transitions very well into the dark to lighter.
Give me an example of a client or colors that you would choose for the top and for the bottom.
I love, again, like a warm brown, almost like an auburn. I think that's gorgeous, and I think that that would play really well into like melting into kind of a more coppery red on the ends.
Wow. So there's some ideas for some fall brunette color.
Ka-chow.